Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Superb Diamond Range. Today's date is the 24th of November 2013 and today's topic is going to be on drugs and addictions.
Okay, drugs and addictions. Well, superb. Just want to say welcome and hope you're well. And interesting topic we have today: drugs,
Definitely.
drugs and addictions. The first drug, what people are known for taking in their lives, would be alcohol. And most people would take alcohol, I would say, quite young. Could be at Christmas, a little drink at Christmas, um, birthdays. I'm talking very, very young. Could be 7, 8 years old. They might have a glass of wine, and to sort of welcome the new year or the new year in their life. And it's sort of quite common in the Western world for children to have a glass of wine while they're growing up. And what are your thoughts on that, Superb?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally true that one of the first drugs that you come into contact with is definitely alcohol, and a lot of it's to do with fitting in with your friends and your social group. I mean, I can remember at a young age of maybe 15, 16, being quite tall, and a lot of my friends at the time used to ask me to buy them drinks and, from off licenses, and, you know, now and again we would try to go to some pubs, and sometimes they would believe us that we were over 18, sometimes not. But that used to happen quite a lot, and I mean, I think when I first had it the first time, I had a few friends that they went on a holiday to Weymouth by the sea, and they spent a lot of time with a lot of Welsh people over there, and they got into drinking, and they used to do a thing called the dentist chair. And when they came back to these parts, they were sort of, you've got to try it, and this is great. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to have a really good time. And I think back then they were sort of introducing me into cider as well. Don't know if you've had any experience with that, Diamond, or
I have. The dentist chair, I've never heard of that one, but I look forward to knowing about that. Is,
yeah.
is it is it as bad as the real chair?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a bit of a cocktail, and they put you in a chair, and they just make you down loads of different combinations. It's pretty dangerous actually, because one minute you could be drinking wine and beer, the next minute you could be taking vodka and other
Oh,
spirits
oh,
and coke and
whoa. Um,
yeah. And then the whole point is you're supposed to tap them on the knee or something to say it's over. I mean, I've never done dentist chair myself, but I had friends that told me about it.
well, thank you for sort of educating me on that one. I've never heard of that one before. But my first experience was I actually started quite late, but it was cider, to be honest. And you know, to start off, I think with a lot of people will take a drink what they like, feel comfortable with, and cider is apple juice. It's supposed to be apple, and it's sort of sweet as well, which gives you a horrible taste in your mouth if you drink too much of it. But cider was my first drink, and I must admit, for a while I did enjoy it, but no, not now. And I used to go to parties and pubs, or I used to drink cider all night. And a lot of the times, as you would say, to fit in, to have a bit of Dutch courage, which in the end, sort of, it's not worth it.
That's right. I remember I worked with a young fella, and we had a chat one time. Like, we were in a pub, and we were drinking, and I sort of brought up the possibility of maybe one day sort of not drinking anymore, kind of thing. And he more or less said to me that he couldn't imagine not doing it, and he said that what about your friends? You wouldn't have any if you stopped drinking. So again, it comes back to that thing where you won't be accepted if you don't drink and join in with them, and it's like, even if you go out with them to the pub and take a Coke, but you get laughed at and ridiculed and made to feel like inadequate, and you end up having a bad night as a result.
It seems like children get bullied at school for different reasons, mostly because of they're individuals, they do not fit in, so they always pick on the one who's different. And same again, socially or at work, it seems like the same things are going on, and you're getting sort of ostracized, picked on, because you're actually trying to stay clean, and also you might even be the driver for the ride home.
Definitely. And I mean, I had a friend that he told me that his group of friends were such big drinkers, and he felt pressured to keep up with them. And he said that basically what he used to do was he used to, when they weren't looking, he used to pour the drink on the carpet of the pub because he couldn't finish the drink. So whenever the guy went to the toilet, he used to pour all the beer onto the floor because he basically couldn't keep up with them. And they would be like, before they would go out, they would drink as well. So before they even got to the pub, they'd be smashed.
Well, that is terrible. I mean, that probably would be, I would imagine, talking like that would be someone late teens, early 20s.
You got it, exactly.
I couldn't imagine someone in their 30s or 40s. Well, I could actually. Someone in their 30s behaving like that.
Because another big thing about obviously the alcohol as well, just like any other habit people develop, or is obviously the amount of money people spend on alcohol. I mean, obviously, if you buy it from an off license, sometimes it can be quite cheap. I guess it depends what you're drinking, but obviously, if you go out to pubs and nightclubs, it can cost you a massive fortune over your life.
Extortion.
Thousands and thousands, which is a shame because it could be better spent, but it seems like you're sort of paying for a bit of suffering, especially if you overdo it the next day.
Because in the Western world especially, they're sold the culture of drinking, and to meet your future partner. Back in the day, I'm talking maybe in the late 1990s or before, because nowadays people meet their partners online on dating sites, but before, the social thing was nightclubs or a bar, and those places are well known for alcohol. So a lot of people would get the courage to drink. They'll see a lady, I really fancy her, and drink too much and make a prat of themselves.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have done it, myself included.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with it as well, is like there can be a point when you don't know what you're doing, and bad things can come of it. I mean, I remember one time I spoke to a film student about the movie Trainspotting, and they said that that movie's supposed to be about junkies doing heroin and illegal drugs and their lifestyle, but if you check out most of the violence in the film, it's always when alcohol's around.
That's very true. That is very true. You do tend to notice as well the type of people that would drink alcohol, and it's anybody, but in general, compared to other drugs, alcohol causes people to fight and to behave violently and be aggressive at home, at work, and sporting events. Could be a football match before a game. So unfortunately, there is a really big, big serious problem in the West with
Definitely,
alcohol.
definitely.
It's seen all over Western Europe and Eastern Europe as well. You know, you've seen a lot of Eastern Europeans come into the shores of the UK. Well, I would call Albion, and they're, they're getting drunk by 8 o'clock in the morning.
That's right. Yeah, because a lot of them are just serious pissheads. To be honest, you see them, you know, every day. Like they'll go to work in the morning and they'll be drinking energy drinks just to try and recover, from all the drinking from the night before. And
It's true.
you always see them walking around with cans all around, and
That's true.
um, it's a real shame, really, that their sort of only way of like socializing is through the drink. And don't get me wrong, there can be times when having a drink, if you don't overdo it, can be a pleasant experience. But I think obviously if you overdo it, it could either end in a bad night, or bad next day kind of thing.
Certainly does, because it does take its toll on you if you keep on going at it.
As they say, burning the candle at both ends.
That's true. That's true. But it is sad because you're born innocent and you go through your early years of your life in great, perfect health, and it seems like as you get older in life, you're basically trying to restore that sort of health you had while you were a youngster.
That's
And
right.
while these children are young, they're trying their best to lose their perfect health, not realizing that they're actually near to perfect already, health wise.
Because I remember growing up as well, like I was always thought of myself as quite skinny in a way, and I sort of slowly remember when I first started drinking back in the day that I was gaining weight really quickly, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. You just sort of like pass it off, but as the years go by, the belly starts to develop, and it's one of the things that people don't realize is the amount of weight you can put on just from drinking alone, and sort of binge drinking, maybe binge eating at the end of the night.
it
Um,
is shock.
it's a combination.
Yeah, because of the sugar as well in the alcohol, sort of can store as fat. So it is really, really hard if you're a sportsman, or you're doing some sort of physical activity and you're drinking. It is tough. Like, for example, a boxer or professional sportsman shouldn't be drinking because it's affecting his health, and also he's putting on weight, and he's going to work harder than the others to lose it.
Definitely. Yeah, I think if you're in maybe a job that requires a lot of concentration, obviously you need to not drink too much, because that will obviously affect your concentration, and you may not be able to do as good a job as you could be, as obviously if you're sober. And
That's true.
um, you've got people that do these high pressure, so-called high pressure jobs, like doctors and surgeons, and some people tell me that they're the biggest pissheads out there sometimes. And
Oh, they are. They are
yeah, it's
the
quite scary.
biggest junkies out there, doctors and nurses. Sorry to say. And
And pilots as well. There's quite a few pilots now that are drinking like bottles of whiskey on the way to certain destinations in sort of Middle East and Asia, and it's really, really. A lot of people are not thinking what they're doing, and obviously you got drink driving as well, very dangerous.
it's just sad because also in one of our previous shows, we were talking about massive hypnosis with the TV, and going back to the TV, you have a lot of soap operas. In fact, I think nearly all of the soap operas in England are all based around pubs, which involves alcohol. And so you're watching people sitting down drinking. So basically, people are watching themselves.
Exactly.
Like you have EastEnders, Coronation Street, and Brookside.
I would also say, Diamond, on the same subject, that obviously Hollywood movies, like, you know, a lot of the time you see them drinking. Like they'll come home from work and they'll take a whiskey on ice, and or they'll be in a bar or something, or they'll be watching a football match on the TV in the film, and they'll be, you know, drinking Budweiser.
True.
And obviously cigarettes as well. That's another big industry where people, you know, you see a lot of movies where people smoke in them, and you know they sort of trying to make it look cool, but you know, as we know, it's very bad for your health. And
Well, the last few years, smoking has been banned in public places, i.e., pubs in the UK, and restaurants, and also in buildings as well, and you know, workplaces, which is a good step. But you know that a lot of people, you know, who I've spoken to, I've asked what is worse, drinking or smoking, and most people say smoking because of the damage it does. But you know, both, you know, drinking too much does mess you up inside as well.
I mean, obviously, the cigarette advertising now, you know, we don't have it here anymore. But in sport back in the day, like snooker, there used to be a lot of sponsorship by Big Tobacco, and I mean, I went on a recent trip to Germany and couldn't believe, like, they have the advertising still over there for smoking. So you'd see massive posters, and I started to notice that a lot of people smoke as well. So I was wondering if there was a connection there with the advertising, and you know, still going on.
I think with smoking, Superb, um, smoking is easier to get into. It seems to be more fashionable than drinking, and people feel they are more cooler to smoke than to drink. So you find more youngsters actually smoking. So you'll see, you know, you might see at the end of school a youngster, you know, walking past his peers with a cigarette, thinking he's badass. Look at me with my one cigarette.
Yeah,
You get,
because I mean, for me, I've never liked smoking. I mean, I've never anybody that smokes around me. I just absolutely hate the smell, and you know, it goes all over your clothes, and
yeah,
you know, I've noticed as well. I meet a lot of people in, you know, in my walks of life where they don't really ask you if it's okay to smoke in front of you, and they'll just light up, and there's no consideration, you know, about you know, breathing
well,
in their secondhand smoke and things like that.
well, that's it. People in today's world have lost the sort of knowledge of what is right, what is wrong.
Definitely.
They probably know it's wrong, but they just do not care. They're not acting upon it, so they're just doing what is wrong. You know, not showing respect to anyone. It could be, you know, they don't care who's next to them. To be honest,
Because another
long,
thing that I've realised about, you know, obviously smoking and alcohol is, you know, it's a very selfish thing, because obviously, you know, firstly you get addicted to it, and then secondly it's like you stop caring about doing it. You know, you just keep doing it, and you don't think about what you're doing to your body, how you're affecting the people around you. Because obviously, some people, they don't like to see people too drunk or drinking regularly, and some people don't like people that smoke all the time because they're worried about their health.
yeah, that's true.
And it's sad because it's, you know, some people find it really tough to quit as well. So, you know, it's a real shame.
I mean, there is always help if people want to stop, and that is a good sign, to want to stop, because that's admitting that you have a problem, and so they're normally, if you've got a good friend, they would help you.
Definitely.
That is when you test your friends too, because a good friend will go out of their way to seek help for you or talk to you, encourage you. Same as could be someone who may be a gambler as well. But we're talking about drugs today, and I guess smoking is designed to make you an addict for sure, more
Definitely.
than alcohol.
And I mean, I would say as well that smoking, um, I mean, cigarettes now have got so much more chemicals than they ever had before. That anybody that's doing it, more so now than ever, it's a more dangerous time to smoke. I would say that they're more lethal than they ever were. In terms of the amount of chemicals they put in them, and there's definitely a side to it to do with like depopulation. I definitely believe that with alcohol as well.
Sure. Would you
You know,
say, back in the 1950s, 40s, cigarettes were promoted and they were seen as being cool. And also back in the 80s and 70s, if you walked into any workplace, you wouldn't be able to see past two yards past you, because all you'll see in front of you is smoke. So,
wow.
and that would be your sort of day back in the 70s. If you talk to your dad about that, he would know. Or
Because I had a cousin that basically he became a manager of a CD store, and he was so busy like doing 60, 70 hour weeks that he never really smoked cigarettes, but he used to occasionally smoke weed. And he started to notice how the other staff that were smoking cigarettes were taking so many breaks throughout the day. So he decided that he was going to start smoking cigarettes just so that he could take a break as well, because he was, finding it really tough. And he just said it was unbelievable, like how quickly the day went, because he was taking a break every hour, every 2 hours, and it was really breaking up the day for him. And then obviously, from a social aspect, you go outside with your smoking partner, and you can have a chat about certain things. I noticed that a lot of hairdressers do this as well. They like their cigarette breaks so they can go out and gossip about what's happening in Coronation Street EastEnders.
yeah, yeah.
instead of their own life.
That's unfortunately that's about the level of conversation or the intelligence a lot of people have.
Definitely.
They're talking about things that do not affect them. But
And another
it's
another big thing that obviously we've noticed is obviously in these parts of the world, like drinking is very big. But if you look at parts of the world like Middle East and so Muslim countries, obviously alcohol is forbidden. Um, so
very true.
what would you say about that, Diamond? What do you think on that?
Well, for those sort of places, from my experience, I know quite a lot of Islamic people, and most of them do not drink because of the faith. And but it seems like there are a lot of them who fall into the sort of category of replacing it with another substance. So a lot of them will smoke or take cannabis, and in some places they would take help me, what's it called? The one in Afghanistan?
Opium,
Opium, that's the
yeah.
one.
And obviously in Somalia they got chat,
They got the chat, or pronounced as cats.
yeah.
So,
So
yeah,
it's completely different over there. Like it's like I know a few people that went to football games in that part of the world, and they were disappointed when they got to the hotel to find out that alcohol's forbidden and they couldn't drink.
Yeah.
So it was like the whole point of their trip was like not only to see the game but to have a good drink as well. And when they couldn't, they were disappointed. And it kind of reminds me of a time when I went with my dad many years ago to watch a boxing fight in Manchester, and the guy we were watching, Steve Collins, he won the fight. My dad was really happy, wanted to celebrate, so we went to Rusholme, which is like the sort of Indian quarter of Manchester where all the restaurants are, and we went into this. We chose, we had 100 different restaurants to choose, and we went into this particular one, and it turned out to be a non-licensed one. So my dad couldn't get alcohol, and because it was so late, it was they said, "Oh, you can bring your drink if you want," but because it was so late, all the off licenses were closed. So we just ended up eating the meal, and I wasn't too worried at the time because I wasn't even drinking, but my dad was like quite disappointed about it. He was looking forward to sort of celebrating with a drink.
Yep.
So yeah, it definitely becomes part of people's system of reward. It's like let's reward ourselves with the drink.
That's true. That's very true. That's true. There's any excuse for a good knees up, as they say. So a weekend is normally a good time for most people after they've done a week's work. They would behave as if they're celebrating. And do you remember the old expression, Superb? What did you do this weekend? I can't remember.
Yeah, I've heard it millions of times now.
So they would respond with, "Oh, was that good, was it?"
And they're quite proud to admit that, they can't remember what they done on the weekend. They must have had a good time, they say.
Yeah, that's right. So
you know.
to not remember what you did over the weekend, and after working your backside off or whatever you do at work, and to come back to work on Monday with a hangover, and the following week it's the same thing.
Because I think as well that it's amazing how quickly the brain recovers from a bad experience, with alcohol or drugs. In terms of like if you have a really, really bad hangover where you get sick many times, that, once you start feeling good again, already your mind's thinking about having another drink. But while you've got the hangover and while you're puking up, you don't want to even think about drinking. You don't
True.
even want to smell it.
Because, when you're going through that stage of puking up, you're thinking, "I'm never ever going to touch this again. Never ever, I promise." You promise yourself, don't you? And I bet you most people have done that.
Definitely. I mean, even the first ever time I drank and I got really drunk, I was shaking. I must have got sick multiple times through the night. Got found out by my parents that I'd done it, and I got in trouble. And I swore even back then that there's no way I'll do it again. But somehow, slowly, I got back into it again. It's a real shame.
It would be nice if there was a way you can just for maybe 20 seconds, you can sort of recall the experience of how you felt, and then, nah, I'm not going to do that again. You're not, just to have that feeling, that sick feeling for 20 seconds, just to remind you that it's not good for you, and you made a covenant or a promise to yourself.
Yeah.
And that is when you keep on doing it. That is when you start to feel guilty.
That's right. Yeah.
That's one of the first signs of when you realise, you got problems. And
because I know some people out there that their wife doesn't drink, for example, and when they drink, they have to hide it. So they'll drink behind their back, and they'll do it when they don't know.
Yes.
Like they're doing it kind of thing, and they can't be caught. And it's quite sad and shameful that you have to hide something. But I guess even in yourself, you know it's wrong.
Yeah.
There are people that justify it and say it's okay, and that I'm entitled to a drink, I should have a drink. But if it's not really helping them in their life, I think better without.
Of course.
I know there'll be people out there that will argue that in moderation it's okay and so on, but you know, you've got to ask yourself, is it really giving you something that you need? You know, it's like
So,
there are better things out there for us. You know, like good nutrition and exercise and
uh,
natural things.
well, saying there's better things to do because a lot of the reasons you find a lot of people do take substances, i.e., singers or musicians, to write music.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So it does open the creative part of the mind a little bit,
That's true. Yeah,
you know. So it does help you relax, and the right side of your brain starts to open and to work, and you have some amazing thoughts. So whereas some people, or most people in general, that have never had a drink could be, um,
missing out on that kind of thing.
yeah. But
Yeah,
I'm not saying there are ways of getting that high, and that
definitely.
via meditation, or as you said before, by even doing exercise, because you do get a natural high.
That's right.
From you've been working out of late recently, and you've been going for some long runs and some good long walks and some good cycle rides, and that alone, coming back knowing you've achieved something, and the endorphins are high, the adrenaline's running, and
Definitely.
you feel really pleased with yourself. And with the alcohol, you sometimes at the end of the night, if you've gone too much, you'll have that depressing feeling.
Because the other one I wanted to raise, Diamond, that you know a bit more than me about was the prohibition. If you could tell us a little bit what you know about it.
Yeah, the prohibition, that was, alcohol was driven underground, and so when it was driven underground, it was underground, so people were still drinking and buying and trading with each other. So, not long after, I'm not sorry to say, I don't really know the years, but it was brought, it was made legal again, and basically, it's made legal because the tax man,
Definitely,
alcohol is only legal because of tax, and cigarettes too.
definitely, that is definitely true.
Otherwise, if it was underground, they would call it a Class A drug for sure.
Definitely,
I would say, both of them are as bad as cocaine, crystal meth, all manufactured drugs. What what are harmful to people,
because
and
obviously you've got like you've got the drugs like coke, that is like powder, and it's mixed with so many different chemicals, and
that's right.
you've got the people out sort of in South America, the families that make it, and they've been by the drug lords, they've been given relatively good lives now, because I mean they've got things like fridges, which is like a luxury for them. They've got like tin roofs so that when it rains they're protected.
Wow.
They're being quite well looked after. I mean, they're not getting really what they deserve for the risk that they're taking, because obviously they can end up in prison for a very long sentence, or even get killed. But it's just a shame that people, like, some of them don't actually know what it's for as well. They get told by the drug lords that basically the drugs is going to help somebody, or it's for a good reason. They don't realise it can ruin people's lives and destroy families, and
Yeah, of course.
which is a real shame, because they're it's compartmentalized the knowledge on so they sort of think they're doing good, but they get tricked a bit as well by the drug lords, which is kind of like probably government behind them as well, of some kind.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, where I wouldn't put that past government at all to have their dirty hands in dealing drugs too. After all, the biggest drug dealers are the British, as they went to China and tried to take all the poppies from there.
I
And
think something like that happened in Panama as well, where they got a lot of Chinese over there, and they got them hooked on the opium, and I think they used that as a tool to make them into slaves as well, if I'm not wrong.
yeah,
So they basically became addicts to that, and a lot of them died as a result of it. Um, I suppose in a way, the modern version of that now would be, the tap water, the food, the chemicals in the food. So even if you think you're clean, but you're still eating those types of foods, it's like somehow or another they are trying to slow you down.
that's true. That's true. So, talking of sort of drugs, what are seen as soft drugs, but are still illegal, drugs like marijuana, which can be sort of turned into weed, skunk, hashish, and people even go to Amsterdam and have cakes, hash cakes, I think they're called.
That's right.
So, what are your thoughts on that, Superb?
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that it should be illegal. I mean, obviously, it's a plant. I mean, we both know that it's got a lot of health benefits and benefits for the ground it grows in, and for making things as well. But obviously, they know that it's a cure of a lot of diseases. So the medical industry is trying to deny it. That's why they made it illegal. But as we know, it's a medicine. So ultimately, it shouldn't be made illegal. It shouldn't be made legal. It should just be taken off the books completely. We should have a right to that. We should all be allowed to grow it and share it, and take it in any form we choose. But it's a real shame that that they've got a control over it, and again you can get in a lot of trouble over it. Just for having a plant. And at the end of the day, it's a crazy world that we live in, where you could murder somebody and do less time than if you deal or carry a plant with you.
Because the government take it personal when you're not paying the middleman.
That's right.
The tax man.
That's right.
So they want a piece of what you have. Everything what we have, they want a piece of too.
Definitely. I mean, all they do is steal from us. At the end of the day, they've got nothing of their own.
Yeah.
They just want to, they use us to get their money, and they spend it how they please. And at the end of the day, it's like, if we all stopped supporting them, i.e., getting into things like smoking or alcohol, they would get a lot less revenue. And to me, that would be good. That would be good to.
That would be great.
Or I suppose one other way around it, if people do feel they have to continue, is maybe try and make their own alcohol. The machines out there now that you can make your own. And
I had a feeling you were going to say that, actually. And I do know someone that does that. My friend's dad, and he makes the best wine, actually.
Brilliant.
And he's been drinking his own stuff. Drinks a bottle a day, and no effect.
Excellent. And I mean, obviously, there'll be no chemicals in it as well, because not
Right.
many people know this, but a lot of the big companies out there, not going to mention names, but everyone knows who they are. You'd be amazed what's in them. But when you start making your own and you keep the ingredients simple, you cut all that crap out. So people wonder why the hangovers are so bad, but sometimes it's the shit that they put in them. To be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, make it yourself, and you know what you're putting into it, and it's all good, and it probably will taste better, to be honest.
And what makes me laugh as well is going back to the weed thing, because we know that is a healing herb as well. Which really, really does help people. We're talking cancer victims, breast cancer, and Also, good for your bones, arthritis. And, I would recommend weed. Good for asthma as well.
I've even
Take,
heard it's good for like people that have gone through trauma.
yeah,
Like if they've been abused or anything like that. That if you take that, it calms you, it
that's
heals
right.
you. Yeah,
And then you go to the mushrooms, which probably aren't as commonly used as the weed or the hash or marijuana, whatever you like to call it. But I've heard of people taking mushrooms in South America and getting the most amazing experiences. Amazing thoughts, spiritual events, which I think it's good to you know experiment with it.
definitely. Because I think also, I think the kind of point where we're getting to regarding it is, don't make it into an addiction. It's nothing wrong with trying out things. Give it, take a blast of it. Kind of thing.
Yeah,
But the important thing is not to let it rule you and become a slave to it. Because
that's,
obviously could ruin your life. It could take up a lot of your time. Um, and I mean, if you know that, if you feel it's wrong and you keep doing it to yourself, then it's probably an idea to think about getting clean and trying to change really.
I would totally agree with that because you can't have place in your life really for your habit and also your dreams.
Well said, Diamond. Nice one.
It's got to be once you start doing your substance abuse or whatever it is, you'll be focused on that, and then you'll be because sometimes it does make you lazy, and you'll be thinking, oh, I'll start tomorrow or the next day after that. So if you think if you think about it, if you're thinking about it, and it's on your mind a lot, that means stop now.
Definitely, and I mean, a great way to stop smoking and alcohol is obviously to look up Alan Carr's book on both those subjects. I think the alcohol one's called How to Control Alcohol, but it's a bit misleading the title because it's actually how to stop drinking alcohol because he more or less admits that it can be bad for you that if you make it into an addiction and he basically helps you all the way to see it for what it really is and
Yeah, that's amazing because it's like they're they're feeding like the worms inside the bodies which are hungry. So you're actually feeding them.
exactly. I mean that's another side that you just raised as Diamond that's really true is the way that the we think that we want these things, but is it something else in us? Like the kind of like the monster in us that
That's
wants these bad things.
that's it. Because
You know,
I use worms as the monster,
exactly. Yeah,
but it's the monster within us. So we're keeping the monster alive by taking our bad things, our addictions. So it could be even food as well, the wrong sort of food.
and another reason why people stay addicted as well is because the monster's always asking for it, and at the end of the day, you need to have a clean break from it. If you keep feeding the monster's always going to be there. But what you need to do is you need to starve the monster for the craving to go away, and that's they call it in cigarette smoking. They call it the 3 day hump, where if you can get past the third day, it's supposed to be get a lot easier. And I mean,
Right?
with alcohol, I'm not really sure how long you need off alcohol, but I think it takes a long time to recover, definitely, and smoking as well. I mean, I've heard that in smoking that you can actually get sick as well at one point. Like really, really sick, because it's your body's trying to clear itself out of all the junk that you've built up over time.
Wow. So that's the thing with Class A drugs. Sorry to say, people really, really get messed up, and when they're on their way, sort of coming back to the real world, or coming back to the fake world, should I say? A lot of them are messed up. They're sick. They're going cold turkey, and when they're going through that stage, a lot of them are actually pretty much suicidal, and when they do go back to it, a lot of them actually end up overdosing.
Wow. Because I've got an uncle that he's a very big drinker and smoker. I mean, he does do a job. I mean, he works in construction, but he does do a day's work. He's not, he's very hard working, but unfortunately, he doesn't really eat much food, and he just mostly is drinking like Guinness and beer and things like that, and he smokes quite a lot as well, and he looks really really bad. I mean, his skin's very dry, and he doesn't look healthy at all. And recently, he had to go into hospital because they found that he had a hole in his lung, I think, and his breathing's really terrible. Like even just a short walk. It's amazing that he can work actually, but I've even heard like a short walk for him, you can hear him breathing really like bad and out of breath kind of thing.
It's
But
amazing.
yeah, it's a real shame.
So he still does a day's work, and it's like he's going into robot mode.
Yeah, exactly.
So he can, after work, he goes back to sort of panting and thinking, "Oh man, I'm in bad shape."
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's like
it's
Irish.
really sad because his wife, like my auntie as well, she was an alcoholic as well, and unfortunately she passed away because the drinking just was too much. But um, you know, I definitely have like family members that have been big drinkers, and I had a cousin that was in the army, and he was terrible when it came to drinking, but thankfully he's stopped now. He's teetotal now, so that's good.
So would you say that Ireland is, as a nation, Republic and Northern are both nations of big drinkers?
Definitely, yeah. It's as they say, it's part of their makeup, their culture.
Because
It's pushed on them big time over there as well.
the Irish have been sold a really bad stereotype, and there are stereotypes with every sort of nation around the world, and they always describe the Irish as being drunks.
Definitely, yeah.
Say, and the English too, but there's a special one for the Irish.
Because the only thing I notice a big difference about the Irish when they drink compared to say the English, or would be like when the Irish get drunk, they're like happy. They're
Oh,
happy drunks. They enjoy. There's a good atmosphere, a good vibe in the pubs. But in England, you don't feel that. It's completely different. It's much. It's like trouble's going to happen or violence when
well,
people drink too much here.
that's very true, Superb, because you go to a World Cup or a sporting arena where there's a lot of nations around, and the Irish are known, especially in football, when they do make it there, as being the most happiest, cheerful fans with the Brazilians.
Definitely.
And there's no trouble with the Irish. There's none of that at all. And I've met Irish. Well, wherever I travel around the world, I've always been greeted and treated as a brother with the Irish people. And yeah, I'm proud to sort of say that I've been to Ireland many times, and great place, great people.
That's very true. So ultimately, there was one thing that I wanted to bring up as well. Was about obviously the cigarettes and alcohol and the drugs, and the government kind of sort of benefiting from it, which is really bad. And I sort of used to wonder that when you sort of overdo a substance of some kind and you feel really bad afterwards, if it's something to do in your in your mind that you're kind of you've overdone it, you've taken too much, and you've kind of given up a bit of yourself to the government. So obviously the government are not going to do very good things with it either. So I kind of always felt that they're connected. It's like the reason you feel bad is not just because you've overdone it, but also because the consequences of your actions, is leading to a much bigger thing.
Of course,
Which is a real shame.
of course. It is sad, and also, you're giving away your money, your hard-earned money, to a shop who are, like in a lot of places, a lot of communities where the people seem to be on the poorer side, they're littered with drugstores. When I say drugstores, I mean alcohol shops off licenses, and you'd find a council estate or a sort of a neighbourhood what's not so sort of doing well, and you'll see the most off licenses there.
Well said. Well said.
And sorry to say, you'll see a lot of people who can't get work, so they want to feel good as the next man, next woman.
Definitely.
Getting a high does, to be honest, in reality, does give you a good feeling.
I think
But
you make a good point there, Diamond. That a lot of it can be like depression as well. Like you take these things to feel good about yourself, feel better, and
you know, some people would go through maybe years or months of trying to look for work, getting rejected, and they're just shown a door slammed in their face. And so, a door being slammed in your face isn't a happy face on the other side. So you want to be cheered up, and you may be single. So a lot of people, the next best thing is to keep on knocking other doors, or let me just go to the shop and just cheer myself up. Only £1, and then the shopkeeper will say, "Well, you're skint, so you can have it on." So a lot of people do.
So I remember years ago, I went into an area like you said where there was quite a few liquor stores or off licenses around, and one of the shopkeepers noticed me walk past with a 6-pack, and he sort of. Sorry.
You're in great shape. Were you training for something then? Was it the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic? That's a 6-pack and what, big biceps as well.
But yeah, the shopkeeper, the other shopkeeper, more or less said to me, what you buy your beer from there? He goes, buy your beer from here, like an order. And as a result of it, I never ever went to that guy's shop again, because who's he to tell me where I can buy
Of course.
But yeah, very rude. So they sort of take you for granted as well, the shopkeepers, because obviously they're making money out of it as well. So
yeah, the shopkeepers around now, they have no interest or respect for you. They, like you said, their god is mammon, money.
definitely.
They're not interested in who you are. They might try and bribe you and say, "You buy it from me," and check this out, Superb. They will say, "How much did you get it from in that shop?" And
yeah. That's right.
you might say £5. Okay. Oh, you can buy it from me for £5, and you say, "Well, it's exactly the same." They're tight asses, eh?
Yeah.
So,
that's another thing. Is like I remember you telling me that a long time ago, Diamond. That rather than sort of going into one shop. Especially if they're not very nice there. I mean, different if it's a nice shop and got good customer service, pleasant people there behind the counters. But obviously, if they're rude to you in there, and that's the only place local to go, then obviously spread your wealth. Don't support one shop. Just go into all of them.
yeah,
So
I agree with that, because they see you as like a bank, like you're loyal to them.
exactly.
Are they at the end of the day? The shop, they're not doing you any favours. while you're spending your hard-earned money and they're sending their child to a private school.
Because another thing I noticed about them as well is they make the deals, but they'll never let you make a deal. So, if you went in there and tried to say, "Can I have this and that? Would you do it for this price?" Even though they know they're still making a profit from that, they won't agree to it. And they don't realise that all you're going to do is walk down the road and get the deals elsewhere.
Exactly.
But for the sake of like customer service and reputation, they'd rather be tight about it. In some people's cultures, like haggling is common, and some people might not like it, but
That's
I
true.
think it has its place. I think because a lot of things are not being sold for what they really are worth. So
Right.
you
That's
know,
true.
making 200, 300, 500% profit. you know.
Well, yeah.
Any final thoughts, Diamond, on drugs and addictions?
Well, it's been interesting because that is a topic that sort of touches a lot of people over a certain age of, say, 20, where people can get into it. But I would say, growing up, try and stay away from that. If you're under 20, try and go through your life as a teenager and just rely on your natural hormones, because seriously, you do get natural highs when you are young. That's why you're still developing, and your mind is still developing too. That's why if you go to America, for example, alcohol is um, legal at the age of 21, because they know that your mind isn't fully developed yet. So the effects of alcohol to someone under 21 is quite fatal. So I think 21 is a good age to start that, and there's no need to rush to start, drinking and thinking that you're in the in crowd. And because the main thing is, if you do, you need to look after yourself. And that saying of life begins at 40. If you hit 40, you haven't sort of got your act together, then you're in trouble.
Definitely, definitely true.
But I just want to say, thanks for listening, and we will sort of have more positive shows, but we just wanted to get this out of the way to let listeners know that we're sort of sensitive to what's going on, the drugs in the world, and our hearts are with people that are good people who may have an addiction, and we're here to help
Definitely.
and support.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should all support each other and help each other rather than, fight with each other, in a way that, we should all be there for each other as brothers and sisters. And,
Of course.
the main thing is having a support network and, and encouraging people to do well, not to go down the slippery, slidey
Yeah,
slope of
that's
drug addiction. And
well said, because there are people that need help in life, and you don't drag them down. You extend your hand and you raise them up.
that's right.
And so this is all part of being free, and getting people to sort of be wise. You need a clear mind, and that will be beneficial for you.
Definitely.
The clean way, the sober way, and life is a great gift, and you know we should be grateful for the great health we have, perfect health, and there's no need to abuse it.
Definitely agree.
So
Okay, so I'm gonna just give you guys our contact details. Again, if you want to suggest topics or um, make give us any feedback, you can reach us at our email address, which is superbdiamondrange@gmail.com. We also have Twitter, which is superbdiamondra or superbdiamondra. And please subscribe to our YouTube, and we're also on iTunes as well. So please do check the podcast out on iTunes. once again, thanks very much for listening, and we look forward to catching you all next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sue. God bless and stay strong. Peace out.
Peace out.